Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Hersey, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of District 214, welcome to the John Hersey High School. I'd like to ask if you all rise at this time for the presentation of the colors, and then would you remain standing as Mr. Jenks conducts the national anthem. Thank you very much. As you can see from your program, the list of characters in our little book is rather long, but the speeches, I understand, are quite short. So I'll get to the introductions right away. As you can also see, John Hersey High School is still unfinished. There's nothing unique for this district. And it's now my pleasure to introduce the man who's partly responsible for it being as complete as it is. Scott, if you had been here yesterday, you'd see that while the school is unfinished, there's nothing lacking in the spirit of the students. So I think you can take heart in that. I'd like to present at this time Mr. Scott Kelly, the architect.
Dr. Smith, Mrs. Hersey, Mr. Hersey, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. I suppose I should come back and say, just like the facilities that we have here, which are not quite finished, neither is education ever quite finished. We hope we can continue on with this good work. Can anybody hear me? Well, it appears as though he has some leprechauns in the sound system. Architects recognize that the climate of a secondary school should be one of excitement. At no other stage of a person's life are there such contrasts in his physical and mental growth as well as his social maturity. Here, for some, is their last school experience, and for others, their first real intellectual excitement, challenge, and discovery. Here, young people can find support and counsel in their awakening drive for self-expression, status, and independence. Obviously, this calls for uncommonly good leadership and proper facilities for those charged with the responsibility of administering to the educational and sometimes emotional needs of these rapidly developing young people. With the help of the fine administrators and teachers here in 214, we are proud to have had a part in providing the John Hersey High School with a climate where excitement and challenge can not only exist, but be encouraged. We feel that technically it is an excellent building and economically one that the taxpayer may welcome. But we are even more confident that John Hersey High School will meet the needs of young people in 214 for many years to come. Thank you.
As I'm sure you all know, District 214 does serve a number of communities in this area. We did want to hear from one of the community leaders, so we chose the village president of Arlington Heights, since this school is physically located in Arlington Heights. And it's particularly appropriate that we do this, and that certainly Mr. Woods has been a strong supporter of the schools and a great friend of education. So I take pleasure in presenting President John Woods, Village of Arlington Heights.
You can see how sincere his comments are. As soon as I get up, he takes my chair. It's a well-known fact that there was a considerable heated contest as to what this school should be named. Schlickenmeyer, some well-known Indian name was bandied about, but there was a small, determined group who favored naming this fine institution for our distinguished guest of honor here today. They were so determined that they decided that if this high school did not bear his name, that a cocktail lounge down on Rand Road would. And of course, it would be known as the Hersey Bar. Friends of education, Arlington Heights is an important part of the dynamic Northwest community, which is one of the fastest growing areas in the nation, and it's an exciting place to live. Here in the land of Lincoln, we know that education adds to human dignity, to creative thinking, and to the progress of peace throughout the world. And so we are deeply committed to an educational system which will produce citizens capable of making significant contributions to civilization. High School District 214 is a vital part of this educational process due to the efforts of many concerned citizens. To all of our friends and neighbors here today to share this happy occasion with us, we extend a warm welcome. To our distinguished guest of honor, John Hersey, and his lovely wife, a special word of welcome and appreciation, and to the Board of Education, to the faculty, and the student body of John Hersey High School, we say good luck and best wishes for a successful future. Thank you.
After that joke, I was sorry I sat in his chair. It had always been my understanding that you stood in the chair of sincerity, and that's the reason I took it. We live not only in Arlington Heights, but we live in a much broader community than that, the state of Illinois. And in view of the fact that this is the sesquicentennial anniversary of the state of Illinois, we thought it appropriate that the chorus sing the state song. Okay? One of the great sources of strength in any high school is that comes from the role of the parents. And so we've asked the first president of the Hersey High School Teacher Parent Council to speak to us on this occasion. It's my pleasure to present to you Mr. Roger Laughlin. As a parent, I would first of all like to welcome all of you parents who have come out here this afternoon to be a part of this dedication. And on behalf of you parents, I would like to also welcome our distinguished guest, Mr. John Hersey and his wife, and other guests. While bouquets are being thrown around, I would like to give a vote of thanks to a particular group that worked very hard to make this school possible. There are many people involved in a project such as this, and the three main groups that come to mind are the building trades, the architect, and the school. What I'm thinking of is a lay citizens committee these are people from this community, volunteers, who formed the committee, did a considerable amount of research, and as a result, were able to bring to the school board the taxpayers' and the parents' viewpoints on what this school should be. They were able to help in the selection of the site, the building itself, the financing, and also the job of keeping the public informed. Again, my thanks to them, and I think this is an example of what cooperation such as this can make a true community effort. And lastly, a word about TPC, which is Teacher Parent Council. Every parent or guardian who has a student in this school is automatically a member of TPC. You're not a card-carrying member because there are no cards. As a matter of fact, there aren't even any dues. which makes it an organization that I think you'll like. But seriously, the purpose of TPC is to interest the parents in school affairs and to help the parents and teachers get better acquainted. You'll have an opportunity to do this at the next TPC meeting, which is also our open house here on November 21st. I hope to see you all at that time. Hersey High School can boast of a very fine building, a winning football team, and an excellent staff and administration. Let's match that by becoming interested parents. Thank you. All of the facilities, the teachers, and everything else associated with the school, of course, is aimed at producing students. So it's now my very great pleasure to present to you an outstanding example of one of those who represents the entire student body, Mr. Michael McLean, the president of the High School Student Council. Mike?
Many schools are named after the place or the community in which they're located. But I'm glad that my school was named after a man. I'm glad that my school was named after a man like John Hersey, not because he's famous or because he's led an exciting life, but because as an author, I like to think that John Hersey fits the description which we as individuals and as a school must strive for. The description of a fine author, which I am referring to, has been stated as follows. He must never be satisfied with what he does. It is never as good as it can be done. Always dream and shoot higher than you know you can do. Don't bother to be just better than your contemporaries or predecessors. Try to be better than yourself. One of the fascinating things about going to Hersey High School is watching tradition being built and watching ourselves build it. We are the first students to attend this high school. Sink or swim, it depends on us. Our ideas, our enthusiasm, not that of someone of 10 or 12 or 20 years ago. Now, I'm not putting down high schools with great tradition, but I am saying as a somewhat biased student and as a youth, I don't want to fall in a rut of looking backward. We must look forward. For Hersey, there is not a past except the one which we are creating as a student body. We find ourselves looking at our former high schools not with envy or jealousy, but as a reference for some of our ideas. A combination of 3 fine District 214 high schools plus that Hersey touch of originality makes for one fantastic high school. This school is being dedicated today, and as representative of the students, I wish to thank the people who made it possible. Not just because this is a place where we can see our friends and have dances and be a source of many great memories, but because this mainly is a place of learning, a place where we can gain an education if as individuals we strive for one. Just as an education is only a ladder to gather fruit from the tree of knowledge, not the fruit itself, so is Hersey High School a ladder to gaining an education, not an education itself. For those of you out there who believe in Hersey High School, we're sincerely going to try to live up to your expectations. And we recognize the responsibility we have to you, Mr. Hersey, for you letting us use your name for our school. But we also recognize our responsibility to get a piece of the action, to do our own thing, and to make this world better. It is my opportunity and privilege right now to present Mrs. Hersey, if you would stand, please, with a special pin. This was designed by Mr. Monette of the art department of Hersey High School. It has a J and an H and a 68 for the year, and the J and the H for John Hersey. And this is in commemoration of this event, and it's from the faculty and students. I'm really glad that I can give this to her. We also want Mr. Hersey to know that we will be sending him an album of the photographs of the happenings of this week, also by the students and the faculty. And we are indeed proud to be Hersey High School.
A few years ago, when Mr. Slickenmeyer retired, we were very fortunate, I think, to have an assistant superintendent who could step in and take over. And since Dr. Gilbert has taken over as our superintendent, we have opened 2 additional high schools. Elk Grove Village opened just at about the time he became superintendent. Elk Grove High School, I mean. Hersey High School, however, represents the first school over which Dr. Gilbert's had, if not complete control, at least he was here all of the time. I don't want to put any burden on your back here. I think you're all aware of the fact that District 214 is the largest high school district in the state of Illinois, and we think that it's rapidly becoming the best in the nation, if not the best. And I think we have many people to thank for that, but certainly the leader and the one who deserves most credit is our superintendent, your superintendent, Dr. Edward Gilbert.
Dr. Smith, friends of District 214, distinguished guests on the platform, students of Hersey High School, faculty members, administrators, ladies and gentlemen. The one thing we can be proud of, Dr. Smith, is that the dedication took place on time. It is my privilege in this brief but very significant ceremony to introduce to you our very distinguished and honored guest today. As I thought of the privilege and honor that is given to me, has been given to me as superintendent of the district, I thought of the very interesting sequence of events which brings to me, a farm boy from Oklahoma, this opportunity and privilege of introducing our guest for today, the son of a missionary from Tientsin, China. John Richard Hersey was born in Tientsin, China, June the 17th, 1914, of missionary parents. And there he attended the Tientsin Grammar School and the Tientsin American School. In 1925, he moved with his family to the United States, where he attended public school in Briarcliff Manor, New York, Hotchkiss School, and then Yale College, receiving his BA degree in 1936. We understand, like a lot of us, in obtaining his college education, he was the recipient of various scholarships and earned his way through college working as a waiter, dishwasher, electrician's assistant, lifeguard, a tutor, and I'm sure many of those other kinds of jobs that many of us held when we were going through college. While at Yale, he was vice chairman and music critic for the Yale Daily News. He was a football letterman and a class officer. Following graduation, he was on a Mellon Fellowship to Clare College, Cambridge University, 1936-37. We understand that his first postgraduate job was as secretary, driver, and general all-around assistant for the famous writer Sinclair Lewis. Following his graduation from Yale, several years of journalistic activities followed. From 1937 to 1944, He was a writer, editor, and correspondent for Time. In 1939, he was a correspondent in China and Japan. In 1942, he covered the South Pacific warfare. He was a correspondent in the Mediterranean theater and the Sicilian campaign in 1943 and correspondent in Moscow in 1944-45. He was editor and correspondent for Life, 1944-45, and has been a writer for the New Yorker and other magazines from 1945 onward. However, most of his time since 1947, he has devoted to fiction. There's probably not a student in John Hersey High School who could not, Mr. Hersey, enumerate the 14 novels that you have written since 1947, so I won't do so, but will mention some that those of us who are not quite so close to your writings would certainly remember. 1944, The Bell for Adana. 1946, Hiroshima. 1950, The Wall. 1959, The War Lover. 1960, The Child Buyer. And then his latest three books, Too Far to Walk in 1966, Under the Eye of the Storm, 1967, the Algiers Motel Incident, as you know, published this year. For his writings, he has received numerous awards and special recognitions. We're all aware that in 1945, he was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. In 1950, he received the Sidney Hillman Foundation Award and was elected to the National Institute of Arts and Letters. The Howland Medal from Yale University was received in 1952. The following year, he was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Letters, the youngest member elected up to that time. Later in 1961, he received the Tuition Plan Award and the Sarah Josepha Award in 1963. Of particular interest to us in this community and the group gathered here today, of course, are his many and varied activities in the field of education. In 1945 to 50, he was a member of the Westport, Connecticut School Study Council and a member of the Westport Board of Education, 1950 to 1952. He has been a fellow at Berkeley College, Yale University since 1950, and a member of the Yale University Council Committee on the Humanities, 1951 to 1956. From 1952 to 56, he was a member of the Fairfield, Connecticut Citizen School Study Council, member of the National Citizens Commission for the Public Schools, 1954-56. He served as a consultant for the Fund for the Advancement of Education, 1954 to 56, and was chairman of the Connecticut Committee for the Gifted, 1954 to 57. He has served as a delegate to the White House Conference in 1955 and trustee of the National Citizens Council for the Public Schools, 1956 to 58. Since 1962, he has been a trustee of the National Committee for the Support of Public Schools. During 1964-65, he served on the Western Connecticut Board of Education. Since 1965, I think we are all aware, he has been at Yale University, where he is serving as master of one of the 12 colleges of the undergraduates of Yale, Pearson College. Mr. Hersey lists as his hobbies sailing, gardening, bowling, and reading. He is married, as you can see, and is a father of 5 children. A little over 2 years ago, in 1966, Mr. Hersey graciously and enthusiastically accepted the decision of the District 214 Board of Education to name the district's newest high school in his honor. At that time, he indicated that he would be available when the time came for the dedication of the school. That time has arrived, and we have been delighted and thrilled to have both he and Mrs. Hersey with us yesterday and today. They have already won a warm spot in the hearts of all of us who have had the privilege of coming in contact with them. It is with the greatest pleasure and pride that I first present to you Mrs. John Hersey. Mrs. Hersey. And last but not least, Mr. John Hersey.
Allow me first to say a few intensely personal words. You may find it hard to believe, but I cannot think of any honor, and I have to, in my very fortunate life, and I have to include the Pulitzer Prize and honorary degrees and election to the Academy of Arts and Letters, which has such personal, private meaning for me as this one. To think that young hearts and minds will enter portals bearing my name and reminding of my work in the future is a kind of reward and an incentive, too, for a writer that it couldn't possibly be compared with anything else. I'm more than grateful. I am moved to a point which is very uncomfortable for a writer, the point at which mere words spoken in public like this are liable to cheapen and falsify what I feel. What a day yesterday was. Your superintendent, Dr. Gilbert, having learned that Mrs. Hersey and I were to arrive at O'Hare a few minutes after 11, very thoughtfully and generously arranged an earthquake to celebrate our arrival. The president of your school board, Dr. Smith, arranged a police escort for our drive here, and in the exactly 7 minutes I think it took to get from O'Hare to this school, I went through more red lights than I've gone through in all the rest of my life put together. With Dr. Smith at the wheel of the board, this school district ought to get somewhere fast. That is, if it survives. And then the moment of arrival here at the school. Hundreds of kids out in front of the building, reading my own name in metal letters on the facade there, the band, the color guard, the faces of the boys and girls already proud of their school and just as curious about me as I was about them. And best of all, after that, my hour inside the school with the kids who greeted me with open arms, not as some awesome famous person, but as a human being just like themselves. Mike's words today were very much in tune with what happened yesterday, and it was very moving for me. And finally, the tour of this exquisite physical plant, where I saw how really lucky the kids and I are. And today I did some more touring, and for the first time in my life, I was in a girl's shower room. I guess the only flaw in the impeccable hospitality of this thing was that there were no girls in the shower room at the time. But I'll come back again some other time. Well, I will never forget yesterday and today. When I pondered recently what I would like to ask of this high school for the future, I guess I have to begin with the hope that I will be invited to a football game once in a while. This is not just because I've read in the school paper that your Huskies do very well indeed on the football team field, but because I thought I might get the most valuable sort of literary encouragement from having half a dozen pretty girls in their cheerleader sweaters and skirts and pom-poms in their hands, gyrating in front of me, shouting straight at me, "Go, Hersey, go!" Such encouragement and the very act of naming this school for me bespeaks a gamble you've taken on me. I trust you don't ever have occasion to regret it. I should give notice here and now that I shall go on writing on controversial matters, because I believe that somewhere in the body of controversy must lie the heart of truth. That kind of truth which every child, every kid, every student, as well as every writer seeks. Of course, if at some time you find you have made a bum bet, all you have to do is take down those letters out in front and put some others up there in their place. Cheche Pingway or Schlickenmeyer or Willow or something of that kind. But I hope that day never comes. And if it does come, Mr. Woods may be pleased to know that I have a daughter, Ann Hersey, who's married a man named Almond, and a niece, Jill Hersey, who's married a man named Barr. It seems to me appropriate to talk briefly at this dedication about a controversial phenomenon that may have vaguely worried the parents and teachers of boys and girls in such a school as this. The movement in our colleges and universities for something called student power. What does this slightly ominous phrase really stand for? What is the meaning of the sit-ins, the forcible occupations of university presidents and deans' offices, the capture of whole buildings, student strikes, student picket lines, abusive placards and posters and graffiti, slogans, bizarre behavior in the name of protest? What is the protest really about at a time when, as politicians and economists keep telling us, we've never had it so good? And what does all that have to do with a beautiful new high school in a respectable suburban community in the heart of the land of the free and the home of the brave? Let me make it clear, first of all, that I'm not going to focus in these remarks on the extremely small nucleus of student radicals that one sees attached to these disruptive events on the campuses. Much more significant is the far larger group of moderate students who find themselves emotionally and often actively involved in them. I speak of the very many who agree with the spirit of the protest, even though they don't march in the picket lines. There are indeed very few, even among the conservative students, to whom the phrase participatory education, in the sense of having a vital share in deciding about what sort of education is desirable and attainable these days, very few to whom the notion of such a sharing does not have a powerful appeal. It is far too glib, and it's a gross and provocative miscalculation, too, to dismiss all the student unrest, as George Wallace dismisses it, as the pastime of anarchists, of pointy heads, of communists. Such indiscriminate accusations do terrible harm in the minds of the young. Indeed, I would assert that the very best young men and women of our college generation are deeply disturbed by the drift of this world. And if the older generation lumps their concern and their acts of witnessing their concern under the scornful categories of hippie behavior or anarchism or new leftism, then the older generation is simply driving the young headlong into those camps. What are the issues that trouble these students? They are the moral issues to which the older generation has for decades given lip service while not being willing or able to make the necessary sacrifices needed for real change. Students care about injustice, oppression, war, racism, and the draining of warmth from our lives by machines. In other words, a passionate idealism motivates these young people. Our best young college students are horrified by the hypocrisy of politicians, by the conviction that in a time of unprecedented urgencies, both Nixon and Humphrey have been saying many things during the campaign, not because they believed them, but because they thought saying them would help get them elected. They are appalled that a third-rate man like Spiro Agnew should be placed one heartbeat away from the most responsible single post of statesmanship in the world. The inability of Lyndon Johnson to be frank with the American people has helped make them deeply suspicious of all adults in positions of authority, including, sometimes, alas, their own parents. The phrase student power was obviously modeled on the phrase black power, and this kinship in phrases is symbolic of a parallel in perceptions. Like the Negroes, these students have tended to see themselves as helpless, as objects of suspicion, as being considered troublemakers. To put it another way, these students sense that the older generation doesn't trust them. I think there probably has never been a generation of American youth more deserving of trust. These students began to see for the most part before their elders, that the Vietnam War was having a viciously demoralizing effect on our people because of doubts about the moral justification of that war. With the purity of youth, these students kept asking whether our naked power, our bombs and napalm and burning of thatched huts were adequate expressions to the rest of the world of our professed ideals. Indeed, I believe it was the passionate and effective involvement of students in the Eugene McCarthy primary campaign in New Hampshire that was decisive in causing Lyndon Johnson to withdraw from the presidential campaign and the intention of devoting the rest of his time in office to seeking peace in Vietnam. On the whole, the student generation is much more sensitively aware than the adult generation of how complex, how two-sided, and how urgent is the task of involving the Negro in full share in American society. These students are aware that the campaign slogan, law and order, had a cynical, unspoken, unilateral meaning that blacks should be kept lawful and orderly, or in the phrase from the Old South, be kept in their place. But these students, feelingly attentive and aware of the great ideals of the American Constitution and of the Christian ethic, understand that police control, the nightstick and tear gas and mace and even the policeman's revolver can't bring harmony and public safety of a lasting kind. That only true consent on the part of our black brothers, a genuine sense of belonging, a real sharing in the opportunities and responsibilities of earning livings and getting education and meeting and seeing to the governance of our towns and states and nation, only in acting out of our famous ideals at last, rather than talk about them, will bring genuine law and order. Young people know this, and they want to do something about it. College students talk a lot about the lack of relevance of their courses and of much of the teaching they're receiving. Listen to what one young student leader in my bailiwick recently said. Too many administrators and teachers interpret the call for relevance as a demand for student political action and entrance into the public arena. This is a misunderstanding. In my mind, he said, relevance connotes not immediacy, but relation to the real world as it actually is. By this I mean education should not be a game or a series of gestures, and one should not study intellectual puzzles, but real problems. Education is not just filling one's head with facts, getting right answers, and learning to take tests. Education, in addition to developing skills for dealing with real problems and learning ways in which to look at the world, means to learn how to think for oneself, to experience beauty for oneself, to choose one's own actions. End of his quote. This seems to me to be a very moving definition of the aims of education, and one which is characteristic of the seriousness, the idealism, and the precocious wisdom of our student generation. So as we seek today a theme for the dedication of this fine new institution, I would suggest that we look under the surface of student protest, that we look beyond the few beards and beads and bare feet to the clear eyes of the many, that we take as a matter of course the youthful tendency to be headstrong and impatient and wholehearted, and that we zero in on the honesty, the directness, the creative energy of our young people, their burning desire not simply to mouth words, but to work and sacrifice and protest if they have to, and then work more to achieve a more decent, more rational, more just, more humane, more peaceable world. To these thrilling qualities of our younger generation, I, John Hersey, dedicate John Hersey High School.
Mr. Hersey, no school board member can commit a future school board member to any action, as I understand it, but I don't think that there's any danger of the name being taken down. As a matter of fact, I think we'll be under pressure to name the next high school Hersey North. I would like to present at this time the last speaker of the day, certainly not the least. He is the man to whom we've entrusted the leadership of this particular school, Mr. Roland Goins.
Mrs. Hersey, Mr. Hersey, fellow educators, parents, students, guests, and my old mother. It has been said that a building, a school, has a personality. And certainly after the events of this historic weekend, the personality of John Hersey will be indelibly imprinted into the bricks and mortar of this building, along with the personalities of all of us, all of you, who have participated in its planning, its construction, and its utilization. John Hersey, in a time past, once said that perhaps the most important unsolved problem in education is discovering and releasing the maximum potential of each child. We do not here lay any claim to the total solution of that problem, Mr. Hersey, but we are proud of these comprehensive facilities with all of its equipment for learning. We are proud of our students, and we have faith in them. We are proud of our faculty, and these faculty members who I feel have a very deep sense of commitment to the service of youth. And we are proud of the parents in our area, in our community, who so willingly give up their labors, the fruits of their labors, to the school. And we are proud of those in our staff who serve the school in its custodial and food services as well. Perhaps it's through this deep sense of pride that we have, through the involvement, the interaction of all, that this school community that we have here ever move toward the type of educational program that will better serve the educational needs of our youth. Hopefully, rightfully, the end of these ceremonies today will not bring an end to the intense feelings we all share during these moments. For if the comments we have heard today about education, about our youth, about our future, stirs our innermost feelings and loyalties, if it awakens us from the slumber of lethargy that perhaps some of us at times have felt, and if it brings we, the individuals of this school community, closer together through understanding and compassion and interaction, then education does indeed become our foremost hope for lasting greatness that we all strive to achieve. For the dedication of this school, for the dedicatory remarks to have real meaning, we all, here, now, and in the future, must resolve to continually renew our personal dedication to the values and the worth of education. As I reminded the students and the faculty at the beginning of the school year, I remind you all assembled here now, our future, the future of the generations of students who follow us through these halls of learning in the years to come, is not in the hands of fate, but is in ours. Mr. Hersey, we're proud to have you here. We're proud to have our school named for you, and words fail me anymore.
I don't know if I sense your feelings properly or not, or whether I'm merely reflecting my own, but I feel very proud of what we've done today. And I really wish that I could tell you it was my idea, but I can't. As a matter of fact, it was one man's idea, and I think we ought to acknowledge that. It was Jack Martin, our assistant superintendent, who gave us the inspiration to name the school after Mr. Hersey, and it was largely his work in arranging all of the arrangements that you've seen today. So I'd like at this moment to acknowledge Jack Martin's role in all of this. Mr. Hersey, we wanted to keep the day fairly light and without business, but it's awfully difficult when you get school board members all assembled in one place not to conduct at least one piece of business. And you may recall in the exchange of letters that we had, one of the things you mentioned was the fact that one of your treasured possessions was a brick that some friend had stolen from this high school site and now rests on your fireplace, as I understand it. So when I heard that, of course, we're very careful about what happens to school property. So I arranged with Dick Bachhuber, our secretary, to take care of this. And Dick has a presentation to make to you concerning this issue right now.
Mr. Hersey, we are deeding you one brick. And may I read it? Witness it. Whereas Township High School District 214 serves the secondary educational needs of Arlington Heights, Buffalo Grove, Elk Grove Village, Mount Prospect, Prospect Heights, Rolling Meadows, and Wheeling, and the unincorporated environs of Wheeling and Elk Grove Townships, Cook County, Illinois, all of which comprise the fastest growing area in the state of Illinois and make Township High School District 214 the largest high school district in the state of Illinois outside the city of Chicago. Whereas the citizens of this area, their elected Board of Education and school administration have constantly pursued and secured the highest educational standards and facilities, all of which are epitomized in the new John Hersey High School, 1900 East Thomas Street, Arlington Heights, Illinois. And whereas heretofore John Hersey, who so graciously lent his name to the aforesaid high school, has come into possession of one brick from said high school, but has no legal title to it. And whereas the Board of Education of Township High School District 214 desires to make legal the possession of said brick by John Hersey. Now, wherefore, in consideration of the literary contributions by John Hersey to this world, and the lending of his name to the new John Hersey High School, the receipt and sufficiency of which are hereby acknowledged, the Board of Education of Township High School District 214 conveys and warrants to John Hersey one brick from John Hersey High School, 1900 East Thomas Street, Arlington Heights, Illinois, free and clear of all taxes, covenants, and restrictions. Dated this 10th day of November, 1968, Township High School District 214 by Frank J. Smith, President, Board of Education, attest Richard A. Bachhuber, Secretary, Board of Education. And this is properly notarized by none other than Eugene F. Slickman. Mr. Hersey, this is indeed a valuable document, and may I express my own personal feelings. We're awfully happy to have had you and Mrs. Hersey with us today. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary and Mr. President, I will have to consult my lawyer about this, but I think I can undertake to say that I can get you proper legal documents, and perhaps we should make it a matter of contract that I will never throw the said brick.
I knew I'd lose my notes before it was over. I should remind you, if you have not had a tour of the building, we will continue to have tours after this ceremony has ended, and there will also be refreshments available right here. The ceremony is now just about over. If you will all attend to us for just a few more moments, the choir will now sing the Hersey alma mater. Thank you all for coming. You may eat or walk, whatever you prefer.